So welcome to another episode of Radiant Menopause, where we are talking all things midlife, all things to do with being a woman over 40 and what life throws at you and how we can cope with it in a very open and honest way, sharing and caring, hoping that some of the things that I talk about are going to be of interest to you and of use to you, or maybe somebody that you know. And today I'm talking about September. Why am I talking about September? Well, because if you've got children, you will know exactly what I mean by the traumas of every September. So, for example, I think the first September that affected me in this particular way was in 1993. And that was the day that I toddled off holding the hand of my eldest daughter in her little red and white gingham dress, skipping along the road, holding this massive book bag with her hair in ponytails and her little ankle socks, because that was the first day of school for her. Arriving at the playground, you know, with all of these other mums and loads of kids buzzing around, having to let go of her hand into the care of her new teacher, smiling broadly and saying, "I'll see you later, you're going to be absolutely fine." And then walking home feeling absolutely devastated and literally not being able to function for the rest of the day. Oh, even though I had a little boy, you know, we just kind of, I think we probably watched Beauty and the Beast on loop that day. And I needed it that day as well as he did. You know, so you might recognize that, you know, that awful sense. And it wasn't that she hadn't been out of my sight before. Clearly she'd been at play school, but that was the start of the beginning of the journey, which was going to be the independence of my kids. You know, as I say, there was 2 at the time. And that September, you know, turned into 1993, turned into, you know, 2 years later or 3 years later, when I dropped my little boy at his first day at school, and then subsequently my third daughter at school. And then when they went independently walking to their middle school, that was another red letter day. When they got on the bus for the first day to go to their secondary school, their you know, their comprehensive school. But the biggie really, isn't it, is when you pack their bags and their boxes and their books and their duvet and towels and cooking equipment, which they never use, and send them and take them off to university. You know, and I never forget that. It was September the 21st, 2007. My eldest daughter was 18. So she went straight, you know, she didn't have a year off. She went straight off to school. And we drove to Leeds. And I knew this was going to be hard. I knew that this was going to be difficult, but I had absolutely no idea of how difficult it was going to be. And particularly, she's quite independent, the eldest one. Particularly, it was quite a shock because when we got there, she kind of said, "Well, you can go now." You know, I thought we might, you know, maybe go, she was in Leeds, maybe we'd go and see the armories or do something, or, you know, at least have a cup of tea and help her unpack her books and things. But she just wanted to do all of that herself, and so it just felt so final. And you know, even though you're so proud of your children, you know, you're proud of how amazingly well they've done, you know, your dreams for them are even beyond your expectations. You're really honoured by their unconditional love and their devotion to you. You're in awe of their energy and their capacity for their love of life. You know, you're really grateful for their good health and their prosperity. You're happy that they're happy. Despite all that, you know, I really wasn't prepared for my heart to be broken that day. You know, witnessing that moment when she's leaving for this new adventure, the next part of her adult journey, I wasn't prepared for what I felt, even though I know, you know, I knew that she would come home a lot, even though, you know, we had mobile phones then. I think back to when I went to university. I was 7 hours away from my mum and my dad, and I would hardly call home. You know, I look back with shame now and guilt, thinking, what must my mum have felt? I was the only person in my whole family to go away to university, and I was the youngest of the three of us. What must she have suffered? You know, I look back in horror now. So we have this technology, and you know, this is a right thing. This is a natural part of family life. And even though, you know, I have a really good relationship with my husband, you know, at the time we'd been married for 30 years, I think. We've been together for 38 years. You know, he's my best friend, and there was nothing, you know, there was nothing about any of that. I knew all of that was going to be okay, and I kind of, you know, could rationalize it all. But I just felt devastated. I was grieving, really. I cried all the way home in the car, and there was just this massive sense of loss, really. And it wasn't even really about that I felt that my role was over, but I do see a lot of women talking about the fact that they feel, you know, cut off, particularly as, you know, all of them left, that women are expressing how they might feel rejected or cut off, or that they're not feeling needed anymore. And they also feel guilty for feeling that the way that they did. You know, this heartbreak, this grief is very natural, but that they don't realize that because they're not talking about it to anybody else. The husband perhaps doesn't understand, and I'm sure that there are husbands that feel this loss as well. I know my husband did, but nowhere near as strongly as I did. And so it's, you know, it is a very, very difficult time, and I'd love to tell you that it got better, but it didn't really. You know, all three of them went to university. Those were the big moments. And even now, I think what's really interesting is that, you know, when my eldest comes home, and she's 31 now, when she leaves, she's the one that I have a tear for as she leaves in the car. And I don't know whether that's because it takes me back to that very first time that moment happened, or whether or not you know, she's just a very different personality. And although she's this really strong, powerful woman, there's a fragility about her as well that I kind of tap into. I'm not really sure. So whatever you call it, you know, obviously it's known as empty nest syndrome. And some women, you know, they don't have it. You know, I've seen some women say, oh, I couldn't wait, you know, to have my house back to myself. And there were times when we'd say to our 13-year-old, when are you leaving home? We're fed up now. We're bored now. Bringing up children, which obviously we didn't mean. It's a bit like you never know how you're going to feel about your children until you have them. You know, I know a lot of women who say, oh, I don't want kids, and then they have them and think, oh, I never knew that it would be like this. It's the same thing. You don't know what it's going to feel like until the children have actually gone. You know, might have been away effectively from home. I think the last one left maybe 6 years ago. And then they keep, you know, dropping in and out, particularly the youngest one, and she's been with us for COVID-19. But there is still this kind of grief at things that have gone. But our relationships now are wonderful, and, you know, frankly, we're looking forward to the next stages in our relationships when, you know, we can be the doting and loving grandparents, and I'm really looking forward to that. And actually, you know, it has given us the opportunity, and particularly my husband, to really enjoy. He's enjoyed having me to himself, frankly, and we've had the most wonderful 6 years without children in the house, where we've been much freer, obviously, to do what we want to do. And they take the mickey out of us because we always seem to be going on holiday. But that's rightfully so. You know, this wonderful thing about being a midlife woman is that you do have more choice, and it's stepping into the choice. Saying yes to things is really important. That's what I've discovered. Yes, experiencing the grief and allowing yourself in the acceptance of all of that is really important, but also looking forward to what is next. What can I do? If there is this big hole that has been created, either physically or emotionally or both, what can you do to fill that hole? And I know for some women, you know, in terms of their relationship with their partner, it's a new kind of rebirth time for couples to rekindle their life together. For others, it's a moment where actually, when you don't have the distractions of the family in the household, it's the moment when you're having a reconsideration about whether or not this is the relationship you want to stay in, of course. And we know that the menopause often very much ties into relationships breaking down and women leaving work around the age of 50, 51, when menopause is kind of the most typical time, because there is that space and time for reevaluation. And of course, you know, with this drop in hormones, we tend to feel different as well. So that's not uncommon. But I think one of the big mistakes is to make those decisions too quickly. You know, if the child is gone and then you're left with the, you know, the old man, and you're not very happy about it, well, maybe, you know, after the readjustment period, it's about rekindling that relationship and seeing what is there. One of the biggest things that we like to do, for example, is get our photograph albums out. You know, least of all the wedding photographs, because you need those visual reminders sometimes. You know, and I know this helps my husband hugely. He loves looking at photographs. It you know, it really improves his endorphins if he gets a bit sad and a bit low, particularly in the wintertime, because he suffers with low vitamin D in the wintertime. Looking at photographs for him is a brilliant kind of pick-me-up. And rekindling and revisiting all of those lovely family times that you've had together can be so like salve for the soul, I think. And it's okay to cry as well. You know, it's sometimes you need to bring those emotions out and allow that grief to happen. It's just like the grieving process. You know, you need to allow it to happen rather than kind of stamp it down and feel that it's not appropriate to do. You know, it really is appropriate to do. And I suppose the other thing is looking at your life in terms of, well, what am I going to do now? And your purpose. I've got a great guest coming up, Dr. Gill, and we're going to be talking about your purpose, your why. She and her partner, Dr. Marion Bevington, who I've also got a great interview with, which is already in the bag, waiting for you to hear. They run this thing called the Find Your Why Foundation, which is helping midlife women particularly. The majority of their women are over 40 and probably around the menopausal age. And they're helping them to identify what their why is, what their purpose is, how they can live the second half of their life in a very fulfilling and meaningful way. And it's about this collaboration and helping them to live, love and laugh every day. That's what they talk about. And, you know, it's about not isolating yourself as well. And I think when your children have gone, particularly if you're a mum whose life has been around your children, you can become very isolated. And so it's reaching back out to either old friends or perhaps new friends, you know, attracting the people that you want to be around. The great thing that is wonderful, I was talking to a fellow nutritionist. We've got a great interview coming up on how you can look after your diet and how that helps you through the midlife and beyond. And we were agreeing that one of the great things about midlife is that you get a bit more picky about who your friends are. And she certainly said that she'd experienced this through COVID, was that she's realised the people that she wants to spend more time with, the type of people, and the people that perhaps she's not going to spend so much time with going forward when we, you know, come back into whatever is our new norm. So it is a time of change, and, you know, time of change for anybody is difficult. You know, for some people it's more difficult than others. Some people like a lot of certainty in their lives and a lot of consistency. Other people are much more able to go with the flow and accept, you know, and it's about that non-judgment thing. I do see women who kind of are really not very helpful to women that are expressing these feelings about empty nesting, actually making the matters worse by saying, oh, you shouldn't feel like this. You should be really proud of your children. You know, this is a new stage in their life and you should be applauding them and all that, what is that about? That's just your opinion. Everybody has a right to their own emotions. Everybody has a right to their deep feelings in their soul. And none of us should have an opinion about that. We can help and we can support. And hopefully, this is one of the things that I'm really keen to do. And by telling my story and how, at times I've been unable to function. I mean, one of the worst things for me, obviously, apart from walking past the empty bedroom, I just learnt to shut the door. Every time, just shut the bedroom door so that you're not looking at the empty bed and all the, the stuff on the shelves and all the rest of it. Shut the door. One of the worst things that used to happen to me all the time is going into a supermarket and going to pick up the favourite food of that particular child that's just left and realising, I don't need that on my shopping list this week. And that massive, you think you're okay, and then all of a sudden this catches you out. I don't know if this has ever happened to you. And there's been more than one occasion when I've just been so devastated and embarrassed because I'm crying that I've abandoned my trolley and just gone home. And I've had to say to my husband, I haven't done the shopping today, I'll have to go back tomorrow. And he's been great about it because he knows. And each time we took a child to university, he'd kind of gird his loins and make sure that the other children were being supportive. This is going to be difficult for mum over the next few weeks or months. Make sure that you're keeping contact with her because we know that this is going to be difficult. And I never felt that I was made to feel bad about it. They love my compassion and they love my heart, my big heart and my soul. And they haven't felt constrained by it. There are moments when they think about how they're going to put things to me. For example, I don't know whether it's going to happen, but for the first time ever, my eldest daughter is talking about not spending Christmas with us because she and her partner are going off to Australia. And they thought long and hard. They all had a big family discussion about how they were going to break the news to me. I know, I was fine about it, but it's so wonderful that they have this sensitivity and the sensibility to realise that, this is important stuff for me. And I'm hoping that the legacy that I create for them is that this family stuff is important for them too. And it's been more obvious actually during COVID because, of course, we weren't able to see the eldest two and their partners for several months. And there've been some difficult times and challenges that have happened, not least my daughter getting COVID and, close family members dying. And so, they have had, as a lot of people have, they've had the realization that although they knew that they loved us and they love each other as a family, that if anything, this has brought us closer together. And I think this is what, in midlife, this is what we can teach. This is the wisdom that we have, that we can pass on to future generations, is to just keep coming back to that, is that nothing really else matters but family and love. That is at the core of our happiness, the core of our soul, the core of what is meaningful in life. And whichever way you need to do that, it's right for you. And that whatever way you cope with it is right for you, but that you're not alone. There are lots of people out there that are probably, millions of people, probably feeling exactly the same way that you do. So I'm going to be talking to other people about the kind of empty nest thing. I think it's, sadly, the menopause is still a big elephant in the room, but I also think that empty nesting is another elephant in the room that we don't talk about enough. So, it'll be a recurring subject throughout the podcasts and the videos if you prefer to watch on video. So if you've got any comments or if you think that this episode can help anybody, please do share it and subscribe, and I will see you next time.